I'm Sharon Dooley, sports massage therapist and yoga teacher. So this week I'm going to take you through some exercises with a focus on strengthening the muscles for legs and ankles. Yes, they will have an impact on knees and hip joints too, because we're connected, we're one whole thing. You can't ever really separate an exercise out and say it just does this area. So it's really about being very aware of the whole of your body as you're going through this and sensing what you can feel. Start with wherever you're at, and then day by day you'll be able to make little tweaks and make it a little bit deeper, or things you couldn't do yesterday. For some of you, you might find that your toes like to stick up in the air. Eventually playing with keeping all of your toes down and pressing down through them, focusing on that daily as you do the exercises, they will eventually come down, trust me. I've had lots of people I've worked with that have had lots of problems because they walk around with their toes up and don't fully use the whole of their foot. And within a month of really focusing hard, obviously it varies from person to person, but they start to realise, oh, my toes can lie straight. They don't have to go like all of these different shapes that they've done, that you might get away with it for years, but one day it might start to cause you problems. So starting off with squats. So with that in mind, with your feet, just if you can, allowing your feet to rest fully, that's the whole of your toes, the whole of your foot on the ground. And just get a sense of pressing down through your feet as you bend into your knees. Have your feet a little bit wider than hip width apart. If you're really, really tight in your hips, take your feet a bit wider. You might start with toes pointing out and then gradually start to bring them in. And you're going to work slightly different muscles with toes pointed out to in. So it's really about playing around. Because running's going forwards, I tend to work on my squat with my feet facing forwards. So pressing down through your feet, shoulders over your hips, ears over your shoulders, and then think of sitting back into your hamstrings. If you were sitting back, use your arms to balance and then come back up. Pressing down through your feet the whole time. It's a lateral squat. So again, really press down through your feet, keeping that weight through your feet. Feet are quite a bit wider than hip width apart. And just being aware of feet almost feeling heavy on the ground. You're going to bend into one leg. Press down through the opposite foot to bring yourself up and come down. You're going to go up onto your toes. Be aware of what happens at your ankles. So ideally you want everything to stay pressing in together and touching as you're coming up, and then come back down. I tend to want to do that with my ankles because my ligaments in my ankles are a bit busted from years of different sports and spraining them. So for me it's quite a big effort to think about squeezing them all together. But I almost have to replace the work the ligaments do with strengthening the muscles. And then a variation on that one, penguin feet, taking your feet out away from each other and then going up. Again, just being aware, it's almost thinking of your ankle joint going straight, middle of your ankle joint going straight out over your second toe. And keep weight through your big toe as well as your little toe. And then turn your toes towards each other. And lifting. Think of somebody's pulling you straight up and then coming down. If you're recovering from an injury, sprained an ankle, the slower you move to begin with at the start of doing these exercises, and you may not go fully up, you might not fully extend, you might just come up a little and down a little, but the slower you go, the more control you want, the more nerve and muscle fibres you're going to start to engage. As you're further along the rehab, then you can start to increase the speed, but always start with a slow, controlled movement, because once you've got that control in the movement, you're building more strength, then you can start to put power in and get more out of it. And then find a wall to sit against. And you're going to lift and lower your feet. So you're bringing your feet up towards your shins and back down again. And whilst it will work quads, it's more about focusing on working the muscles along the front of your shins. So those muscles helping to lift your foot up into dorsiflexion. So as you come through your running cycle, you want to lift your foot up. You've built some strength in those muscles to do it. And again, issues going along the front of the legs won't just affect the ankles, they can affect the knee as well. So it's just building something like that in. And then the final one is a walking lunge. So think of your angles of 90 degrees knee to hip and foot to ankle. And then you're going to step forward. First time doing this, go smaller steps, and then you can take it bigger, but keeping your shoulders over your hips, weight kind of back into the back leg so that your front knee stays in line with your front heel. And then I'm just going to walk backwards and forwards because I'm limited on room. You can do a forward backward one, that's one you can do, or you can take it walking lunges. Because we're looking at this from a running point of view, sink your arms up with your legs. So as you're bringing your knee up, your arm is coming back. So this right knee's coming up, my right elbow's going back. Left one will come forward, and then I'll draw my left leg back as I bring, left elbow back as I bring my left knee up. So start with, if it's completely new to you, just start with 5 repetitions, and then 10, and then build up to 3 sets of 10 a few times a week. And you should find with doing these that you are starting to build more strength in your muscles. You should start to find you can run for longer before you feel the muscle fatigue set in. Obviously, if you're going out on a long run, don't think of doing a set of these in the morning and then going on your long run and having your best long run ever, because you're going to have tired the muscles out with doing some of these exercises. So if you're not running every single day, doing the exercises to begin with on days that you're not running, over time you might join both together. A lot of my winter training, I'll be doing circuits almost as a warm-up before I do my session. But that's something that you build up to. If you start off with doing something like that, you're just going to end up overloading the muscle tissues and in pain. And there's a limit to how many people are treating hands-on at the moment, so probably best to avoid that. The next set I'm going to do is on mobility, and then next week I will follow up with something else.